My life was the mine. Not just the hole in the earth, but the heart of our people. I, Kalen, was its guardian. Every tunnel, every vein of gold, held the whispers of ancestors. We worked it with our hands, our traditions guiding us. It was a sacred trust, a legacy I bore with honor. Above all, I trusted Elder Silas. He was our patriarch, a man I respected more than any other. He taught me the old ways, the importance of balance. His wisdom was a beacon. I saw him as a father, a protector of our heritage. His word was law, his guidance absolute. And Silas began speaking of modernization. He spoke of growth, a secure in our future. He presented complex legal documents, calling them protective measures. I saw them as safeguards. He assured me they would shield our traditions, not change them. I believed him, completely. Some elders expressed unease, whispers of caution, of changing times. Silas dismissed their worries as resistance to progress. I too saw it that way. I stood by Silas, defending his vision. I thought I was protecting our future, not paving a way for its destruction. The announcement shattered my world. Silas had seized control. The legal documents I'd trusted, weaponized against me. He cited my inefficiency, my outdated methods. The words were cold, precise. My mind reeled. It was an attack, not just on me, but on everything I stood for. Disbelief warred with a crushing physical pain. This was not progress. It was betrayal. The man I revere had orchestrated my ruin. My heart ached, a deep, soul-wrenching wound. The trust I'd given him, absolute and unwavering, had been used to dispossess me. Heavy machinery rumbled onto our sacred land. Steel devoured rock where hands once worked. Our traditional miners, my brothers, were dismissed with brutal efficiency. Their faces etched with despair, mirrored my own. I watched our heritage crumble, powerless, heartbroken. I confronted Silas. His eyes, once warm, were now cold, unfeeling. He spoke of legal clauses, of profit margins. He called my passions sentimentality, my methods obsolete. His tone was patronizing, his words a calculated insult. He stood before me, a stranger in the guise of a patriarch. A profound spiritual wound opened within me. I felt the land itself cry out, the ancestors disrespected, our traditions desecrated. The mine, once a source of life, now bled under the assault of greed. It was a violation, not just of property, but of spirit. The initial shock faded, replaced by a quiet, burning resolve. I would understand every detail of this betrayal, every legal maneuver, every lie, and from that understanding, a nascent spark of vengeance ignited. Silas had taken my legacy. I would take his. My first move was to gather information. I tried to access the mine's operational records, the detailed ledgers of gold extraction, and the family's legal archives. I needed to understand the scope of Silas's takeover. But every digital portal, every physical file I sought, was locked. A cold, official message appeared. Access denied. Legal injunction in place. The blockade was absolute. Not just the mine's daily logs, but even the centuries-old family charter, documents I had always been privy to, were beyond my reach. It was as if a giant, invisible wall had been erected around my past, present, and future. This was more than just a change of management. It was a complete erasure of my authority. I reached out to Elias Thorne, a respected family lawyer who had handled our ancestral land matters for decades. I hoped he could shed light on the protective measures Silas had presented. I still clung to the idea that there was a misunderstanding, a loophole to reclaim what was ours. Elias met me in a quiet, secluded office, his face grave. Elias laid out the truth with painful clarity. The documents I had signed, trusting Silas's word, were not protective at all. They were a meticulously crafted legal cage. Binding Kalen, he said, his voice low. Every clause, every signature, perfectly executed to transfer full operational control and ownership. Silas left no room for doubt. My stomach twisted. The realization hit me hard. This was no spontaneous act of greed. Silas had planned this for years. He had subtly altered agreements, twisted my implicit trust, and used my reverence for tradition against me. He had played the long game, a master manipulator weaving a web of deceit around his unsuspecting kin. The depth of his betrayal was chilling. I walked through the village, a ghost in my own home. I saw our former miners, men I had worked alongside, now jobless and destitute. Their stories were all the same. Silas had dismissed them without a thought, replacing them with strangers and machines. Their words painted him as ruthlessly ambitious, the man who saw only profit, not people. A pattern emerged, stark and undeniable. Silas had systematically demonized our Haitian traditions, labeling them inefficient or outdated. He glorified modern efficiency and profit margins as the only path forward. It was a pretext, the carefully constructed narrative to justify his hostile takeover. He was not just stealing our mine, he was erasing our identity. Then the rumors started. Whispers in the market, veiled comments from distant relatives. I was unfit, stubbornly resistant to progress, incapable of modern management. Silas wasn't just taking my mine, he was systematically dismantling my reputation, discrediting me in the eyes of our community. This was psychological warfare, designed to isolate me. I sought out Elder Mara, the wise woman, marginalized by Silas's new order. Her eyes held deep sadness. "The charter, Kalen," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "Look for the forgotten words, the ones that speak of shared trust, not individual power." He twisted them, weaponized them against us. Her words were a veiled clue, a flicker of hope in the deepening despair. Mara's words ignited a burning resolve. I went back to my old study, a place Silas had not yet stripped bare. Behind a loose stone in the hearth, I found it. A small, leather-bound fragment of an old ledger. It detailed payments, not to family, but to obscure, offshore accounts. This was not just about Silas and our family. This hinted at a network of corruption, far beyond what I had imagined. The community gathering was supposed to be about unity. Instead, it became my public trial. Silas's allies, men I had known my whole life, spoke against me. They called me an unfit traditionalist, a relic holding back progress. Whispers followed me like shadows. I stood firm, but the sting of their words cut deep. This was Silas's work, a calculated attack on my standing. The ostracism spread to my family. Our market stall saw fewer customers. Children avoided mine in the schoolyard. My wife, Alara, met every slight with quiet strength, but I saw the pain in her eyes. Silas was not just hurting me. He was slowly, deliberately, isolating my entire family. This was a cruel strategy, designed to break my will through their suffering. I spent long nights poring over the fragment of the old ledger, the obscure offshore accounts. They led me down a trail of shell corporations and hidden transactions. I cross-referenced names, dates, then legal firms. I began to see a pattern, a network of corrupt officials and lawyers, all connected to Silas. This was not just a family betrayal. It was a criminal enterprise. The full horror of Silas's plan slowly revealed itself. He had known my every weakness, my deepest beliefs, my trust in him, my devotion to tradition, my spiritual connection to the land. He weaponized them all. He used my hope and heart to force the chains that bound me. He understood me better than anyone, and he used that knowledge to destroy me. The cold precision was terrifying. My investigation led to a chilling discovery. Silas wasn't just taking the mine for himself. He had already secured buyers for the ancestral land. Large industrial corporations, not interested in gold, but in the vast mineral deposits beneath. Their plans detailed complete environmental devastation, strip mining our sacred earth for maximum profit. My ancestors' graves would be plowed under. I sought counsel from Elder Theron, a spiritual mentor from a neighboring community. He listened patiently. "The ancestors are not weak, Kalen," he said, his voice calm. "Their strength flows through you. Patient justice is a river, not a flood. It carves mountains over time." His words reminded me that my path was not just about revenge, but about reclaiming what was truly sacred. I began gathering evidence discreetly, methodically. Financial records, land deeds, environmental impact reports, all pointing to Silas's corruption. Each piece was a thread in the tapestry of his deceit. I felt isolated, a lone warrior against a powerful, untouchable patriarch. But with each piece of evidence, my resolve hardened. I would expose him, no matter the cost. The weight of it all pressed down on me. I questioned everything. My faith in family, my adherence to tradition, my very purpose as a guardian. Had I been a fool? Was my devotion a weakness Silas had simply exploited? This identity crisis was a dark, churning sea within me. I had to find my anchor, or I would be lost. A message arrived from a disillusioned former clerk, a man named Jorah. He was afraid, but his conscience gnawed at him. We met in secret under the cover of night, in a secluded alcove near the old river. He handed me a small encrypted data chip. "This is everything, Kalen," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Silas's true ledger, hidden from the family." I rushed home, the chip burning in my hand. Plugging it in, I navigated through layers of encryption. What I found was beyond my darkest fears. Silas wasn't just selling the land. He was systematically dismantling every aspect of our ancestral legacy. Not just the mine, but the very memory of our people, for a vast unimaginable fortune. This was not greed. This was annihilation. I knew I needed a mind as sharp as Silas's, but untainted by our family's influence. My search led me to Anya Sharma, a lawyer known for tackling impossible cases against powerful figures. She listened, her eyes keen, absorbing every detail of the betrayal. Her questions were precise, cutting through the emotional noise to the legal core. I felt a flicker of hope, a new kind of strength forming. With Anya's insights, I began to truly understand Silas. He was a modern predator, driven by profit and a ruthless efficiency. His moves were not random, they were calculated steps on the corporate chessboard. I started thinking like him, anticipating his next financial maneuver, his next public statement. To defeat him, I had to become a reflection of his own ambition. The encrypted chip Jorah gave me was a goldmine. It detailed a horrifying environmental impact assessment Silas had suppressed. It showed fraudulent land claims, forged signatures, and a complex web of kickbacks to local officials. Each document was a nail in Silas's coffin. I organized it all, meticulously, creating an irrefutable case against him. Silas craved public image, a modern patriarch bringing progress. This was his greatest vulnerability. I planned to use his own tools against him. Social media, news outlets, public forums, these would become my weapons. I would expose his hypocrisy, not in a quiet family meeting, but on the grandest, most public stage imaginable, where his lies could not hide. I began to reach out discreetly to the men and women Silas had discarded. Former miners, community leaders, even some of his own disillusioned clerks. They had seen his true nature. Their resentment simmered, a quiet fire waiting for a spark. I met them in hidden corners, their whispers confirming my resolve. They would be my army, their voices, my chorus of truth. My plan for public exposure blended old and new. I envisioned traditional storytelling, ancient truths spoken with modern clarity. Elders would share histories, while digital platforms broadcast the hidden evidence. The narrative would be undeniable. Silas, not a progressive leader, but a destroyer of heritage. It would be a story our people would understand, amplify for the world. A profound moral dilemma gnawed at me. How far was I willing to go? Revenge could consume me, make me no better than Silas. But justice for my ancestors, for my family, demanded action. I wrestled with the darkness, seeking a path that honored our traditions, even as I prepared for a battle unlike any our people had ever fought. My soul held heavy with the weight of it all. One morning I went to the mine. The desecrated entrance, now a gaping maw of steel and concrete, hurt my eyes. I knelt, placing a small, smooth river stone, a traditional offering at its base. A silent vow. My connection to this land was unbreakable, my ancestors' spirit still strong. This small act of defiance was a promise to myself, a reaffirmation of my purpose. The grief and shock had receded, replaced by a cold, precise determination. My focus sharpened into a weapon. Every piece of evidence, every recruited ally, every aspect of my plan was a component of a carefully engineered strike. I no longer felt like a victim. I was the architect of Silas's downfall, and my resolve was unshakable. Then the news broke. Silas was hosting a grand public announcement. The mine's official relaunch, a celebration of his visionary leadership. It would be a lavish affair, with media, investors, and local dignitaries present. The perfect stage. Silas, in his arrogance, had just handed me the opportunity I needed to execute my meticulously planned counterstrike. Silas stood on a brightly lit stage. He exuded confidence. A smile plastered on his face. He spoke of progress, of a modernized mine, of immense profit. He announced the sale, a final act of dispossession. I watched on a small screen, calm and focused. This was his moment, but it would soon be mine. My allies were ready. Ani gave the signal. Across various platforms the truth began to spread. Documents, videos, testimonies. It was a synchronized attack, precise and undeniable. I felt a quiet surge of power. The battle had truly begun. We wove a story. Ancient symbols flashed on screens, followed by cold legal facts. Elders spoke of our heritage, their voices resonating with truth. Then, his clear voice detailed the fraud, the twisted clauses, the stolen land. It was a blend of spiritual appeal and hard, undeniable evidence. The testimonies poured in. Dismissed miners spoke of their suffering. Environmental experts detailed the coming ruin. Jorah, the brave clerk, presented Silas's hidden ledgers. Each voice was a hammer blow, shattering Silas's carefully built image. The evidence was irrefutable. The community watched, Shock turned to anger. I saw it in their faces, heard it in their murmurs. The man they revered, the patriarch, was exposed as a thief and a liar. Their collective turning was palpable. Silas had lost their trust. Forever. Silas tried to fight back. He called my claims fabrications, the desperate acts of a bitter man. That his words held no weight now. The evidence was too strong, too clear. His desperate lies were exposed, for all to see. He looked cornered, his confidence crumbling. The story exploded. International news outlets picked it up. Our ancestral land, our traditions, Silas's betrayal. It became a global spectacle. The intricate web of deceit, greed, and cultural desecration was laid bare. There was no hiding now. A bitter, hollow triumph settled over me. We had won this battle, but the wound remained. The betrayal, the desecration of our ancestors' memory, it was a spiritual scar. Justice was served, that the pain of what was lost would never truly fade. Anya moved swiftly. Formal legal action was initiated. Lawsuits, injunctions, criminal charges. Silas and his network of corrupt conspirators would face the law. The legal system, once weaponized against me, was now our instrument of justice. The ancestral land was temporarily saved from sale. The immediate threat was gone. But I knew this was just the beginning. The fight to reclaim, to restore our traditions, to heal the land and our people, was far from over. The real work was still ahead. Silas's world crumbled fast. The legal actions Anya initiated moved with ruthless efficiency. His assets were frozen, his partners arrested. The public scorn was immense. A tidal wave of outrage. He, the once revered patriarch, was now a pariah. I watched from a distance, a cold satisfaction in my heart. His empire, built on lies, was dissolving. My first act was to set foot back on the mine's sacred ground. The heavy machinery Silas had brought in stood silent, rusting hulks. I initiated the long process of reclaiming it legally. A complex dance of documents and court orders. But more importantly, I started planning the restoration of our traditional, sustainable operations. It was a promise to the ancestors. I called a community gathering. The faces were tired, wary, but hopeful. I spoke of healing, of moving forward. I offered a path that honored our ancient traditions, but also embraced necessary, responsible changes. I told them we would rebuild together, stronger than before. Their murmurs turned to nods, then a quiet, collective resolve. The environmental damage was worse than I thought. The quick, brutal methods Silas employed left scars on the land. I brought in our elders, our spiritual guides, and environmental experts. We meticulously assessed every wound, every poisoned stream. Long-term restoration plans were enacted, a pledge to heal the earth as we healed ourselves. Even with Silas defeated, the betrayal left deep internal scars. The man I had looked up to as a father, a guardian, had tried to destroy me. The loss of that patriarch figure was a permanent shadow. Sometimes the anger flared, hot and sharp. Other times a profound sadness settled. I knew this wound would never fully close, but I could not dwell on the past. I embraced my elevated role. I was now the steadfast guardian, not just of the land, but of our family's integrity, our communal spirit. It was a heavy mantle, but one I accepted with a quiet strength. My purpose was clear: to protect what was sacred for generations to come. We held a powerful, symbolic ceremony. Elders chanted ancient prayers, smoke cleansed the air. We offered our respects to the ancestors, reaffirming our spiritual connection to the land. It was a cleansing, a recommitment. The earth felt lighter, a burden lifted. Our traditions, once desecrated, now shone brightly again. Slowly, painstakingly, the community began to heal. They looked to me for renewed leadership, for guidance. Trust, once shattered, was shatteredly rebuilt. We started new projects, revived old customs. The laughter of children returned to the mine's entrance, now a place of hope, not desecration. Our sacred values found their way back into our daily lives. I understood then that true justice extended beyond mere revenge. It encompassed restoration, preventing future betrayals and the painstaking rebuilding of shattered trust. Silas's downfall was necessary, but it was only the first step. The real work was in creating a future where such greed could never again take root. The legacy of the mine and our family's untarnished name was slowly, painstakingly rebuilt. It was a testament to our resilience. But the memory of Silas's betrayal, the chilling precision of his greed, served as a permanent cautionary reminder. It would be a story told to our children, and their children, a stark lesson for generations to come.